Hello, hello. Today's a fantastic day to inspire lives. My name is Jaime G, Raygoza, and welcome to Finding the Unicorn in You, a weekly podcast and where we help individuals discover their inner talents and skills that separate them from the rest. Our goal is to inspire you to find and connect with your inner unicorn. I hope you enjoy this week's show. Hi, everyone. This week we're going to start this show a little bit differently. I actually have a task for you. What I would like you to do is to do a random act of kindness. Unicorns are consistently trying to make other people's lives better and also your own. So what I would like you to do is next time you walk through a building, open the door for someone. If you go to a coffee shop and you see a line behind you, pay for the coffee for the person behind you. If you see a stranger walk by you, say good morning. Give them a smile. If you see someone having a hard time, ask, hey, are you okay? So whatever it may be, do one random act of kindness and spread joy and love to the next person. I hope you take this task to heart and you get it accomplished. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed this week's show. Today, I do have Rolando. We actually met here in Port Beach about a year ago, roughly, a couple months ago. He just inspired me off the get-go. He was very ambitious. He always had big dreams, big plans. He's actually the reason I started taking TikTok a little bit more seriously. I will let him talk a little bit more about himself and kind of his journey.
Hello, my name is Rolando Cristobal. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. Went to college there. I worked in finance most of my life. I've worked for about 10 years. We're from banking, credit card companies, most recently a mortgage company. And so now I am in a major transition in my life. I am transitioning to be an entrepreneur. Literally in the middle of the transition right now. I'm going to learn on how to be an entrepreneur and leave my 9-to-5 finally.
I know you did something that's very unique. A lot of us wouldn't even dare to do. So do you want to speak a little bit about that?
I think COVID for me, and I think for everyone, really was a big reset and a big reevaluation on my values and what kind of life I want to live, what kind of happiness I want to chase. And so when COVID happened, immediately transitioned to work from home. My mentality just completely changed on the way that I view work and the way that I view activity in the United States. When COVID happened, I got a lot of time back to myself. Stopped commuting to the job. Because of that, I reevaluated and I was working my full-time job and I got laid off in March. And that's when I had this life decision to make. Like, what am I going to do? I just continue and get another 9-to-5 job, or do I go for it and chase my dreams? I'm taking a leap of faith right now. And I'm, like I mentioned, I'm in the middle of this transition and I'm so excited. I'm scared. I'm nervous. But most of all, I have faith in myself.
I know that you've accomplished a lot of little things and a lot of big things in the past year that I kind of want to brag about a little bit because not everybody can do that. One of the things that you did was you ran a marathon. You consistently trained and did it, and you ran 26 miles. So how was that?
Well, something on my bucket list was I want to run a marathon. That's something that I had always said. And I don't even know how that came about, to be quite honest with you. Opportunity came about signing up. And I thought to myself, well, let me just sign up for it and do it now because I'm young and I am, fit at this point in my life. And I don't know. I just thought to myself, it's going to be easier to do it now rather than later in life. I signed up for it. And that was kind of like a goal now that I had to work towards. Because one thing is saying that you're going to do something, and then the action when you actually sign up for it, now you have like a deadline, you have a goal to work towards too. I trained for 4 months. I asked all my friends if they wanted to join with me. Every single one of them said no. So I was like, okay. So I trained on my own. It was a beautiful experience to have something to work towards too. Now that I'm an adult, now that I'm out of school, and that is non-work related. Because of that, because I accomplished this marathon, it really increased my self-worth a lot. And it gave me a little bit of an ego boost about, hey, I could do anything as long as I put in the work.
I think it's amazing because that's something that a lot of us can't or aren't willing to do. And it's just the stamina, the training. You have to stay in shape. You have to be able to do the right things in order to maintain that. I've seen people running the marathon who faint or who give up halfway or even a quarter way. They psych themselves out. Someone that's even interested in doing something like that, what are some tips that kind of want to give them?
First tip I would say is sign up for it. once you sign up for it and once you've paid money towards it, you are more likely to follow through rather than just saying, hey, I'm going to run a marathon next year, and time comes and you haven't trained for it. So my first tip would be to sign up for it. Even if it's a year away, sign up for it, because again, now you have a deadline and you have a goal to work towards too. And the other thing would be, I used this app called Aptive, the online trainer, and it's audio, and listen to it. And literally they have the workout set out for you. I recommend that. That's what really helped me throughout my training process. Through there, I learned about mantras or affirmations to tell yourself when you're running.
Okay.
Because after 10 miles, it becomes extremely difficult, and it's all a mental game from that point moving forward. You have to tell yourself like, hey, I could do this. Hey, I'm powerful. Hey, I am strong. I can accomplish anything. Really have to rewire your brain to continue that mental game of the marathon.
I think having a good psyche and having a good mental state is number one, because if you're not in the mental state to start something, it's not going to be long term, and that's something that you want to be able to do long term. And switching gears a little bit, because I think there's a lot of things I want to ask you and a lot of things I want to talk about. You're one of those unicorns that have very, very unique talents. You have a lot of different pathways that you've took. When I met you, you were barely getting into becoming an influencer on TikTok. You had somewhat of a following and you were starting off, and then you became more consistent. You started doing more content. You started putting more effort into it. And you went from someone who I saw with 4K to now having 20K plus followers, and you're getting tracked with different sponsors. You're getting like reached out to. Nowadays, that's the dream. So what started your path to TikTok, and then what is keeping you with that drive?
Really, and to be quite frank with you, I just don't feel like working for someone.
Yeah.
I don't feel like clocking in to a 9 to 5 anymore. Having someone to tell me when I can go on vacation, someone to tell me to take my lunch at a certain hour. I think again, and COVID kind of refined my values on that. You know, I was a good worker, and I loved and I enjoyed working, and I got a lot of promotions and everything. But I think in this day and age, with the future and just how we're moving with technology and social media, being an influencer is a very lucrative career as well. There's people making 6 figures plus, or way more than that sometimes, as being an influencer. And so I think me not wanting to work for someone really drove myself to put in a lot of effort on TikTok and make videos and make money ultimately off of the platform and off of the brand deals.
I have friends who are teachers, and they ask their students, what do you want to do when you grow up? Common answer now is like, I want to be an influencer. But a lot of individuals don't really know what it takes to be an influencer. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of dedication, and it's its own practice in itself. You're your own boss, like you said. So why don't you give us like an inside scoop of like, how is it like your day to day as an influencer?
Yeah. And you know, the funny thing about me wanting to leave my 9 to 5, you are an influencer, or when you are working for yourself, you're technically working 24/7. That is always on the top of my mind, literally 24/7 throughout my day. I wake up, right? And sometimes I'm like, okay, well, let me record me waking up, or let me record me eating my breakfast. Or if I go out and explore a new city, at the top of my mind, again, I have to think about, okay, well, how can I create content here? How can I start recording in a certain situation? And sometimes even in like very intimate moments. That's something that I'm still learning, and I'm navigating on how to separate that. But it's definitely a lot of work. Again, you have to always have that on top of mind, because like anything, you have to be consistent. You have to be consistent in order for you to grow on social media. It is a little bit more life consuming in a way, but at the same time, you have so much more freedom, if that makes sense.
Yes. In a way, you're doing what you love. You're doing something that you have a passion for. So it is a job, but it's something that you like to do. I know last week I had an individual that I interviewed, and she said one of the best ways to avoid burnout is actually doing something that you like doing. Because if you start doing what you like, it doesn't feel like a job. It's more of a lifestyle. I think you took it one step further, and you're doing what you love, but for yourself. Like you're your own boss. You are the person that gets to control your schedule, person that gets to control and say, when can I, if I want to do a video at 2 a.m., I'm going to do a video at 2 a.m. The world is your oyster. You get to do whatever you want. Your options are essentially limitless. So I think that is amazing. And another, like I said, another unicorn quality in itself. So when you start looking in others that you admire, that you think, wow, those are unicorns, what are some qualities that you feel you look for in other unicorns?
I think for me, personally speaking, people that can really conquer the emotion of fear, because I feel fear controls a lot of our lives. For me specifically, right when I first started this influencer journey, the fear of what people are going to think of me, the fear of what the backlash might be, or the fear of failure, even. And I look at people who are unicorns or people who I admire or that I find inspiration from, are people who, and of course, we're all going to have fear to some extent, right? But people who can conquer that emotion and continue to live their lives without having that emotion controlling them. And I can name a lot of people. You are one of them. I feel like you're a go-getter. You do so many different things. Another friend of mine, her name is Shannon. She's a mom. She works out. She's doing her influencer career too. And she's just a go-getter. Yeah. And so those are, a few of the people that inspire me.
Living a life without fear is very difficult. I think there's a lot of things that, especially what's going on today in the world, it's very hard not to fear and have that be your motivator. But I think you're 100% correct. You have to be able to take the leap of faith and the risk on yourself. True unicorns are consistently doing risks to make their lives better, because if you stick to the safe choice, if you stick to only doing what is the norm, the way that capitalism and the United States is structured is for us to be always working for someone else, and to be working a 9 to 5 or whatever schedule may be, and staying in middle class. It's not structured for us to go into living these lavish lifestyles or being able to go out and consistently travel and see the world. Like, majority of us are even under that because of recession, but at the route that we're going, and inflation and gas prices and everything that's going on, it's making it very difficult just to even live in the United States. And that is a good transition for me. You decided to avoid all that and live in Mexico. You were born in the United States and raised here, and then you just said, you know what, I'm gonna bounce. So how was that?
Well, another goal of mine, or another thing on my bucket list, was I want to live in another country. And what better country to live in than the country that I'm from? And so both of my parents were born in Mexico, and I decided to move to Mexico because I wanted to meet family that I had never met before. I wanted to connect with family that I hadn't seen in 20 years. And it's been just such a fruitful and beautiful experience to get to know my culture, my language, my family. And I think I did it in a perfect time too, especially with everything that's going on in the political climate and the economy as well too in the United States. So that kind of just worked out, and I lucked out that I did it at this small piece in time. So yeah, it's been a beautiful experience. But
Do you feel like your life has been simplified a little bit?
it's a simpler way of living out here. For example, before I used to have like 10 skincare products, and now I literally have a bar of soap and lotion, and my skin's doing just fine. It's definitely a set from American culture. You realize how much being advertised to over there, and how much
It's a
think we
consumer
need
culture.
certain things. Capitalism, right? Essentially, it's definitely a lot simpler life. I'm enjoying it 120%.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest differences I've seen in Mexico and here, is that the United States is a consumer culture. I went to go visit one of my aunts in Mexico 2 years ago. She had a very tiny fridge. Anything that fit in there was just for the day. Every single day, she would go to the marqueta and she would basically grab the groceries that she needed for that day and her liter of Coke. Every day she'd drink her liter of Coke and come back and then cook for the day, and that was it. But that was part of her routine. Every single day she would go do that, come back. And here it's like we go to Costco and bulk up and buy all these things, and then the food goes to waste because we don't use everything.
Yeah, 100%. On, like, again, even just down to like skincare and clothes and shoes. Now I look at shoes as a more practical thing, instead of
Yeah.
like looking at it as like fashion. Am I gonna look cute? Like, oh my God, where am I going? I'm looking at it more as a, again, practical thing. Like, am I gonna walk today? Okay, let me wear some comfortable shoes. Or am I gonna go out to a nice dinner? Okay, well, let me wear some nicer, you know what I mean? But and I only have like 4 pairs of shoes, and over there I had like so many pairs of shoes. So my life is definitely a lot simpler. And I'm realizing, like, again, we're just being marketed to in the United States like crazy.
Switching gears again, you know why I think you're a unicorn. So why do you think you are a unicorn?
That's a good question. In college, I read this book that really changed the trajectory of my life. It's called Mindset by Carol Dweck. She talks about a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And I wasn't very good at school. I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. At one point in my life, I didn't consider myself intelligent. I didn't consider myself a lot of things. Because I read this book, I discovered that I had a fixed mindset and that I thought my abilities and my intelligence was fixed. After reading that book, I discovered what a growth mindset is, and the fact that I have a growth mindset and that I know I can improve in whatever I set my mind to through trial and error, through failure, and through consistency. So I think that's what makes me a unicorn is my mindset and the growth mindset that I have.
And I think, like we talked about before, you have to be in the right mindset in order for you to achieve things. You have to be able to make the risks. You have to be ready to do the change. Because if not, you're gonna stay in the same loop of wake up, go to work, come back home, sleep, eat, go to work again. So what is one of the biggest challenges that you have faced either this year or just in general that have taught you like a great life lesson that you hold to heart?
I think for me, I had my life made up already. I had predicted what I was going to be doing the next 5 years. And that was working, a 9 to 5 job, working in the fintech industry and buying a house and living in California. Like I had that in my mind. But because of what happened, because I got laid off and because I'm following my dreams, the biggest challenge was letting go of that identity that I had made up for myself already. Again, the marathon was it came at a perfect time in my life too, because as I was running it, I was letting go of my identity of me living in Newport Beach, of me, going to my workout classes over there, of me drinking my iced coffee, of working my 9 to 5 job and leaving that identity all behind and starting brand new and fresh. For me, that was the biggest challenge because I had a hard time letting go of that, of who I was. And that really taught me that you can be whoever you want to be at any point in your life. And yeah, that's what I learned.
So who is one of the biggest influencers in your life? Who is your biggest unicorn that influenced you to start the career pathway that you're on today?
It's been a little bit of everyone. I can't name someone specifically right now, but I think TikTok, this app, has really exposed us to a lot more authentic people and a lot more people doing the things that they want to do because that makes them happy. Mm-hmm. And so all the people that I follow, I could say, right, on TikTok are people that have inspired me because at some shape, way, or form, when I saw their content, I decided to follow them because that gave me inspiration in some way. I think this beautiful platform on TikTok and people going for their dreams and actually doing it made me realize like, well, if you could do it, I could do it too. That's what has brought my influencer career to start.
If you had one piece of advice to give our listeners on how to achieve their dreams or how to even kickstart their process of achieving their dreams and becoming that unicorn that they want to be, what would it be?
I would say expose your mind or feed your mind to brand new ideas and concepts. And so how do you do that, right? Is because sometimes we can just get so into our phones, right? So into our entertainment. We're constantly being distracted, whether we're working or we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, or we're on Twitter or just our phones, right? It's a huge distraction. And a lot of it is just to pass time.
Yes.
But if you use your time wisely and instead of watching 3 hours of like a Netflix show, which we've all done, and there's nothing wrong with that. But instead, right, to kickstart your career or whatever it is that you want to accomplish, maybe read a book on whatever that topic may be, or maybe listen to a podcast on someone that's already doing what you want to do. Because when you expose your mind to different concepts and ideas and other different perspectives of other people, that will really open your mind And perhaps you might have that bright idea that no one has ever thought about, but you would never have that bright idea if you didn't expose your mind to this concept first.
Yes.
Read books, listen to podcasts. And I think that's why a lot of my TikTok is about self-development, because that's something that resonates with me a lot. And with time and consistency, anything is possible.
I love that. And it's true. If you don't know, you won't know what you want if you've never been exposed to it. I think there's a lot of positions, there's a lot of things out there in life that we just aren't aware that people can do. And we're like, wait, I like that. That's what I want to do. I think that's a passion I want to pursue. So I think that's great advice. And it's hard because, talking from experience, sometimes you want to keep up on all your shows and you want to get sucked into that world of Netflix and Hulu. And it's a distraction. You really want to do something with your life. If you really want to achieve big things, you have to put those aside, or if not, monitor how much time you're putting into that and really plan out a future where you're like, okay, I'm only going to put in 3 hours max this week on here. And then the rest is going to be on focusing on me and actually paying attention to my goals. So those are pretty much all the questions I have for you. Is there anything that you would like to ask, or is there anything else that you would like to say?
I mean, in this time, I guess we could just catch up. How have you been?
I've been good. I've been good. It's just I've been sick right now, but for the most part, I've been doing very well. Been busy with a side business, which is Raygoza Consulting, and then also my podcast. It's been really crazy. And a few months ago, I released 2 children's books, Your Source and then The Life of Trilito.
You should write down of all of these things, these little accomplishments that you have, because I feel like when we look back, we forget.
Yes.
That's something that in my last job, my manager had me practice, was like I had a running doc. And running doc had like questions and every week for me to answer, like, what are your biggest wins this week? Like, what do you need help this week? Stuff like that. But I think if we had like a personal one, like, what are your wins this week? I feel like that would be a really big win. And that's something that you could speak to in the future as you continue your career with podcasting and just with public speaking and doing presentations and stuff like that.
That's a really good idea. We accomplish so many little big and little things every day. But as time progresses, they start becoming less and less big to us. You get so involved, like sucked into whatever we're doing at that moment. And I think that's a good idea, having like a success journal.
There you go. Yeah.
A very motivating thing to see. That way, whenever you're feeling down or unmotivated, go back and be like, oh, I accomplished this. And I think that's a good idea. A success journal would be phenomenal.
Do you do YouTube?
I do. I post all of my podcasts on YouTube.
On shorts or like actual YouTube?
Actual YouTube. So I do is video that I'm recording right now. I would post it on YouTube as a video podcast, and then the audio I would do on Spotify only. So just if you have YouTube, feel free to search Finding the Unicorn in You there, and you can listen to it. And do you have anything in the works right now that you're kind of like passively or intentionally working on that you might release in the future?
Well, I got this inspiration from you. I want to write a book. I want to be an author, and that's something that I've on the top of my mind, but I haven't done any action to do it, to be quite honest, just because I've been busy with life and traveling and figuring out where I was going to live. But I think over the next upcoming weeks, I'm really going to start to buckle down and focus on how to write this book. And hopefully I can get your help too on
Of course.
how to get started and all of that. But yeah, that's the next thing, writing a book. And then I want to do more self-development. But in order for me to do more self-development like TikToks, I also have to be actually consuming that self-development content or reading those books in order for me to make those TikToks. And once I start doing that, I want to get into coaching, do one-on-one coachings with people, because I feel like I have that gift and talking and connecting with people and inspiring people.
I think you do. And I think that's amazing. And that's a really good path to go to. And I think that in itself is its own career. That's what I did for my business. And the reason I opened Raygoza Consulting is to be able to do life coaching sessions and consulting sessions to be able to help individuals reach their goals, whether it be in their careers, in their personal life, and trying to maneuver them to do that right. I've actually had a couple clients already, so I'm super stoked and excited. I meet with them once a month. So it's very small starting off. That's what I'm doing. So I think if you pursue that route, I think it's very gratifying. It's a rewarding work because you just see their smiles and like you say something and it's just those aha moments that light up in their head and you're like, wow, like this is why I'm doing this.
Yeah, and I know it's a reward, like you said, it's very rewarding. So that's the next thing that I'm gonna dabble into these next couple of months that I'm out here in Mexico and trying to make a living. What about you? What's some a piece of advice that you would give to someone coming from a PhD student, all these achievements that you've accomplished? What's a piece of advice you would give to someone?
Don't allow other people's opinions to define who you are. You have to be able to make your own journey. You have to be able to make your own path because you're always going, and don't allow excuses to stop you. There's always going to be a barrier. There's always going to be an excuse that's going to make you not want to do something. It may be the lack of motivation. It may be money. It may be because you have a disability. It may be because your family, your status of your relationship, whatever it may be. I've always had something in my life that people say you shouldn't be able to accomplish what you did because of where you're at. And I'm going to give you a good example. A couple examples, actually. When I was young, I had ADHD and I was undiagnosed until I was 29. So my whole life I struggled and I had to study harder and I had to work 3 times as hard as a regular person because it was really hard for me to focus. It was really hard for me to read and comprehend things and even like speak. Spanish was my first language. So I didn't learn English until I was 8, 9 years old. It made it really hard for me. And I developed a stutter because I was trying to learn English and there was to a point where my teachers were, hey, your son's gonna have to go into a special ed class because we don't have room for him in our only English classes and he doesn't learn English fast enough. Mom really helped me to learn English and she learned English and they helped me really master that to the point where I forgot my Spanish. So in high school, I had to relearn my Spanish and it was a whole nother barrier there, especially since my extended family only spoke Spanish. And I've always had different things. When I was growing up, I had my internal struggles of like internalized homophobia, trying to come out, not accepting myself. And that also put me down. When I was in college, I had to be working 4 jobs in order to be able to go through my bachelor's degree because my parents didn't have enough money to put me through college. So I was doing that, taking school loans. I was working the 4 jobs and I was still going on internships and doing my schooling. I've always had something that people had said you should not be able to accomplish what you've accomplished, but I still did it. And right now that I'm doing my PsyD psychology, people were saying, you're working a pretty intense job. You're a program director. You're handling staff. You're working 70 plus hours. You should not be going back to school. So I ended up just going back and going to school and doing that. But I'm still with my side business, with my podcasting, with my books. Like right now, I'm working on a fiction book and I'm a quarter in and it's about the pandemic, fiction story about 2 gay men in a pandemic. So it's just like something that I have constant dreams. Don't allow that fire to stop burning. There's always going to be, like I said, something that's going to stop you, but use that as motivation. Use that as a stepping stool to move forward. So when people say there's an obstacle there, no, I see it as a rock that I can step on to reach to the next step. So use what you have, be creative with it. If life gives you lemons, make freaking lemonade. Do it. Because at the end of the day, through those experiences, through those sacrifices, through the pain, you're going to become a better person. But yeah.
Yeah, you definitely do a lot. And again, kudos to you. And you are a big inspiration to me to be able to do more. Really appreciate your presence in my life.
Thanks. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you too. You're consistently doing great things as well. And I get motivated all the time, really motivating me to keep wanting to try harder. And for me, having someone that I can also compete with and being like, hey, I want to get to that level. And that's like, it's amazing. And for me, one of the people that inspire me is one of the people like you, but one of the biggest persons, and she knows it too, because we're constantly competing, is what my cousin. Ever since we were young, we always competed. If she got an A, I had to get an A plus. If she got into an honors class, I had to get into AP class. If she graduated with her bachelor's, I needed to graduate with my master's. And that's another reason I went to my doctorate, because we both reached our master's degree. And she's like, I think I'm done. And I was like, oh, you're done? Okay, let me go get my PsyD. Even now, she calls me. I just got a promotion. I'm like, oh, cool. And then I'll work. And I'll be like, hey, I just got a promotion. Now I get paid higher than you and I'm at a higher position. And then like a few months later, she'll be like, hey, guess what? And so we're consistently trying to compete with each other.
A little friendly competition never hurts anyone. And as long as it's all, in fun and games, someone to inspire you and have someone help you achieve higher goals. And that's how I view you. Like, you wrote a book and you're doing your podcast and you're doing your side business, and you're my inspiration, and you're someone I want to compete with. Even though I'm not on your level yet, but I'm gonna catch up real quick.
I think we're all in different stepping stools. If you put all of our accomplishments in a line, there's going to be some that are going to be higher, but some that are going to be lower for me, versus for you, some are going to be higher for you, and then some are going to be lower for you. So I think that we've all accomplished different things, but when you sum everything up, we're probably in the same platform.
That's another thing that's a good point that you bring up, that I had to learn, is to not compare your journey with someone else's. Because I had friends that went to like Ivy League schools and have these great careers. And so I would compare myself and I would say, why am I not there? Or why am I not at that level? But we all grew up completely different. We all had different parents. That's another, I guess, pro tip is do not ever compare your journey with someone else's. Even though we're comparing ours right now, but you've gone through things that I have never gone through. And you've had to climb mountains that I probably never will, and vice versa. I think if you just focus on yourself and your own personal journey, it's the sky's the limit.
I agree. 1,000% I agree. There's an analogy that I like to think about. When you're born with a backpack. People start filling up your backpack with different things: your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your height, your education, trauma, and your backpack gets really heavy after a while. However, based on where you were born and what family you were born in, you may have less like rocks inside your backpack. So you may be able to run faster up a hill versus somebody who has all these rocks, maybe running at a slower pace, but they're building so much endurance. They're building so much strength that when the other person finally reaches midway and they get tired, the other person just keeps going at their pace, even surpasses the other individual because they've learned how to master the weight that they're carrying on their shoulders. So never judge what the other people are doing, because you don't know what obstacles or what challenges they've had to get them there. One of the things that a lot of individuals tell me are, I'm a failure because I didn't graduate high school. I'm a failure because I didn't go to college. I'm a failure because X, Y, and Z. But that doesn't make you a failure. That just says that you are going to succeed different things at different ways and different timing than anybody else. I have people in my doctorate degree that are 89 years, 90 years old. I'm 30. There are people that were 35, 40, 50, 60, 70. Even when I was in my master's degree, there was a 90-year-old lady that was like getting her master's degree. And she said, I just want it because I want to have it on my wall before I die. That was just her thing. So you could always accomplish something. You can always do something. Don't let time, your age, or anything stop you, because that's just an excuse. Like I said, don't allow an excuse to take over your life and say, I can't do this. If you suck at reading, buy an audiobook. If you don't like studying, get a partner so that you can motivate yourself. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to get the tools that you need to succeed, because there's multiple ways of success. And me, I have ADHD and I take medicine on a daily. And for some people, they're like, oh, you're weak. You can't do it on yourself. No, it's an assistance that I need so that I can be able to handle the obstacles that are given to me. People who are on psychotropic medication because they have depression, anxiety, or whatnot, those are things that they need in order for them to be able to succeed. See those the same way as a person who can't walk, who needs a wheelchair. They need that to help them to not be equal, because you're never going to be equal, because if you were equal, then they would give you the ability to walk at that point, but to be equitable so you can reach things at the same level. Don't ever compare yourself with others, because you're never going to reach the same pathways as everybody else. You're going to have different accomplishments.
I'm going to steal that from you, that analogy, that backpack analogy.
Do it.
This has been pleasurable and this has been fun.
Yeah, I love this. Thank you so much for coming on, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Thanks again for listening to Finding the Unicorn in You. I would like to ask you to do 3 things for me. If you have enjoyed this episode, or if you are enjoying listening to this podcast, hit the subscribe button and share it with a friend. I have a lot of great guests and content that are coming up in the future, and I don't want you to miss a thing. 2, if you have any comments, suggestions, or feedback that you feel would make this podcast better or more engaging, or if you would like to be interviewed for a future episode, feel free to shoot me an email at raygozaconsulting @gmail.com. Lastly, if you like this podcast and would like to support it, we are accepting any donations to help sustain future episodes. There is a link in the description of this episode. Feel free to click it and to donate anything from a cent to your heart's content. All donations are truly appreciated. Thank you again, and see you next week for next week's show.